Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
Yep, that one was a concession. All right.
God, how did I argue for and against this in the same line?
All right. So is Nano still here? Nano, you're up.
Yep. Okay. So I guess should I start by outlining where my sort of position is on this topic?
Of course, yeah.
I guess I'm going to be arguing that meaning is subjective, and it is a requirement for it to be subjective. But at the same time, I think it objectively exists. If that's not at all confusing.
No, I follow you.
So basically, I see meaning as the structure of interpreted data. You encounter things in the world, and the way you make sense of them, and the way you process that data to construct it into information, is by looking and analyzing all the relationships between things, and that's where you derive meaning from. And so, what do you think of that sort of idea?
Well, that's kind of what I was arguing against Bridge for. Is so why why is that? In any reason, why should I take that area of which you're driving meaningful? Like you're saying, that's meaning. Like meaning is a weighted word in and of itself. Like why should I say that that is the meaning of life? You're placing a moral value, not a moral value. You're placing a value upon that interpretation of the world. Why should I accept that? Why is it more valuable, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I guess I don't really see many other alternatives that make sense.
Please elaborate.
So, if meaning is not derived subjectively, then where does it come from?
So it is always derived subjectively, but then what is your claim to the objective meaning, as it were?
So I think that subjective meaning exists in our heads as ideas, and I think that ideas objectively exist. So the idea of what you find meaningful exists as an idea.
But so I'm asking for objective meaning, though. So is there an objective interpretation of meaning, or is it entirely subjective?
To have an objective interpretation, it would have to be encompassing everything, and it would be like trying to program a computer that can compute itself. You need more parts than what you're you have to, in order to have a meaning that encompasses everything, you would need to have more than everything in order to try and compute it to some extent. Meaning has to be derived, and so if you're deriving meaning from everything at once, you need more than everything in order to do the computation, I guess.
This makes me think of so many Futurama episodes. It hurts. No, seriously, when they're collecting all the information into that fucking brain there. Anyway, so I guess what everyone's been doing is been laying out a justification for this statement as they go and giving their answers. And I guess what I'm putting forth is the idea that if you're going to make a claim to meaning here, you have to concede the idea that yes, it is arbitrary. And if you're going to say
I don't agree though, because
so why is your
because I think of the universe as a deterministic thing, it by definition cannot be arbitrary. The things that you find meaningful are based on who you are as a person, and who you are as a person is based on the experiences you've had. And you can always
if I may, then if it's not arbitrary, we can have an objective understanding of this. Then what is meaningful is not subjective. Then there is an objective interpretation of what is meaningful.
I'm not sure I'd say there's an objective interpretation of what is meaningful. I think that we can have an intersubjective consensus on what is meaningful.
Oh, you fuck me with that word, Jesus Christ. Okay, but then it's not objective. So you did start this by saying there was a
It objectively
subjective and
exists, but it's not objective meaning. So, like more than like because meaning is an abstract thing. You can say that abstraction exists, but it exists
So
as an
should
abstraction.
should a person's understanding of meaning be meaningful given another's interpretation of it?
Well, yeah, you will find meaning in that things other find meaning. Bleh. You will find meaning in the things other people find meaningful, but it will likely not be the same meaning. Like it won't mean the same thing to you as it does to them, because of how you interpret it.
But then it should. But once again, by saying meaningful, you've placed a weighted value on that.
Yeah, in order to interpret anything or to even have this conversation, we need to convey meaning to each other. Like you can't
Well, no, but
think about
that's
it or
the thing
discuss
is,
it
can
without
one
implying
understanding of meaning be meaningful? The full is kind of, I know I've narrowed it down to such a fucking semantic point here, but that full is kind of the idea because it's that you're placing a weighted value on that.
Yeah, in order to
And if
process
you're
it, you have
doing
to.
that, it's sorry, go ahead.
In order to process it, you have to place some kind of. You have to weight it in some way, or you can't like internalize what it could mean or what it should mean, or like
So
you
then
have to
my
process it
argument,
some way.
but my argument would be that you're making that arbitrarily. You're saying you have to process it somewhere, but you could process it in multiple locations
You
and come
make
up
it.
with.
You process it based on who you are in the moment. It's not arbitrary. Based on the information you the existing information you have, the new information you are being provided with, and your existing biases based on who you are. That is how you will derive the meaning of the things you encounter.
Therefore, it is with structure and form. Go fuck yourself. I'll concede.
That's where Bridge went wrong. He couldn't explain
Oh
why
no,
it was
I'll
not
legit.
arbitrary.
I'll legit with form and structure. I'll concede.
There we go. All right. So next up, Colombian is talking to Nano.
Yo, what's up, people? I'm back.
Hey,
Okay. All right, wait. So who starts? Me or
well, I think I've
who-
already explained my position a bit, so maybe you should.
I
explain
feel
your
like
position.
yeah. Good luck finding a disagreement after we've just gone through like 3 airtight conversations.
Actually, Colombian, you could do me a favor and just like listen and try to get an idea of what you're gonna say, because I accidentally skipped David, who hasn't talked yet this entire conversation. So I'm going to, unfortunately, push you a little bit further down the line. David, you're talking to Nano.
Okay, I don't know how to get through this conversation. So what are the points that you would make, Nano?
That meaning is by requirement subjective, but that it objectively
Okay.
exists as an idea,
Okay.
and that we can have an intersubjective consensus on what is meaningful, and that's helpful. If you want to try and go for the same goals, basically.
All right. So what I think is that there's actually 2 definitions for when somebody asks what the meaning of life is, it can be coherently interpreted in 2 different ways. So it depends on what your definition of meaning is. So one of the definitions of meaning I have is the process that beings use to help them perceive and interpret reality. So your ability to interpret things would be your meaning. So
I like that definition.
Yeah. So that might be, for instance, like one of the mechanisms in the brain that produce the sense of meaning. So
is that distinct from the first definition? Or is that
no,
part of that
it's
process?
the same it's the same definition. So
yeah, okay.
You would basically say that the meaning of life in that way would just be the process of interpreting and perceiving sense data. So in that case, I would say maybe the meaning of life is meaning itself, which is kind of
So
confusing.
so like the meaning of life is to like seek out meaning, like to try and make sense of the world. Or, like, is that what you're saying?
Saying that that's one way of interpreting the question of what meaning is. So that's one way of looking at it, which is just simply meaning as in your ability to perceive things, like interpret symbolically what things might mean or the implications of what those might mean, or conceptualizing objects in your physical environment, the kind of So I would give another definition of meaning as well. I have two definitions, and one of them is meaning is also defined either implicitly or explicitly as a thing that psychologically motivates you to continue to survive. So
Yep.
it's what helps you continue your existence, like across time. So in that case, it would be very difficult to figure out a singular meaning or a singular commonality between everybody's different perceptions of what is meaningful or what helps people survive. So there might be a commonality within all beings' desire for the continuation of their own lives, but it would be very difficult to figure out what that precisely would be. And I think that you might agree with that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Although I do think that both of these definitions you've provided are somewhat instantiations of the definition of meaning that I had provided earlier, which is that they are interpretation, like the structure of interpreted data.
Okay. But definition 2 isn't the same as that, though. It's different, and I don't know.
Well, the mechanism is the same.
I guess so. But the actual definition, I think, would be different. Even if the same mechanism is used for both in both senses, it's a different definition of the meaning. So two different meanings.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that it is a almost meta definition. Like it's a definition of meaning that uses meaning rather than the definition of the meaning that describes the mechanism. So it's like the meaning. It's like the meaning of meaning almost.
Right. I don't think that meaning is arbitrary, and I don't think that because
I would agree with you there.
I think that we recognize that we don't necessarily choose what we find meaningful arbitrarily. Like it's not random for one thing, and we don't really choose it secondarily. And I think that our sense of meaning is a product of nature, so it's completely natural, as in it's predetermined by, like, for instance, laws of physics. So it's not arbitrary because there's not really anything to arbitrate it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not arbitrary.
Right. Even though meaning is subjective, it's not arbitrary. So, I think that sometimes people get these two definitions of meaning mixed up when they ask the question of what the meaning of life is. It's not meaningless when your terms are defined, but when you equate the definition, or when you equivocate between the definitions, then the linguistic constructions become meaningless. Do you agree with that?
What is your opinion on there being some kind of objective meaning?
I don't really know what that would mean. I think there might be an intersubjective meaning. I don't know what
I think
you
we
mean
stand
by
in the same
objective
place
meaning.
there.
So I think that the second definition that I gave would be closer to an objective or intersubjective. Well, not really. I think the first one's probably better for objective. The second one's probably better for intersubjective. So,
I think we're running into the issue that we're both on the same side here.
Okay, so if the second definition is correct, if that's what's implied by the question, then would the meaning of life be to survive?
And by extension, like, is it just personal survival, or is it survival of the species?
I'm not really sure exactly. I haven't thought about that.
And I think that because, like, there's nothing really providing any outside guidance, that defaulting to that is just like, it seems like an easy answer to me.
Right. Be able to figure out what the meaning of life is true, or should we be able to provide an answer to the meaning of life if we're using the second definition of meaning?
It seems to me that the meaning of life is, as with meaning itself, completely subjective. Like, you can measure like goals against other people's metrics, and that's how we create these intersubjective measures of what's right and wrong. But when it comes to your personal meaning, you have to derive it yourself based on what you believe, basically.
Hmm.
Like, it's almost like the question is, what is the question?
I mean, I guess so. I don't know. Like, I don't know where we disagree exactly. I'm not sure
I
about
think
that.
I actually just heard a concession out of David's mouth. Where you say you don't know, I think that's a concession. So, Colombian, are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I had an idea kind of about my personal response to the question, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so the meaning of life, and why should one person's understanding of meaning be meaningful given any other person's interpretation of it? Well, the thing is, I personally believe that we don't have a meaning of life currently, because I mean, I do believe that we can search for one and that everybody has their own personal meaning, but society as a whole has encouraged has, I guess, discouraged the search for our own personal meanings of life, and we haven't really, because we're too busy, doing stuff with the Industrial Revolution. That we're too busy. We can't search for our own personal satisfaction, our own personal fulfillment, and our own meaning of life. If anyone wants to challenge that, I don't have
Nana?
any. I mean, the problem with modern society as a whole is we don't really have as much self-expression as we used to be before. Everything was what's the word? Everything. Yes, exactly.
Nana, are you interested in responding to this? Because if not, I'll pass off.
Yeah, no, I'm getting to it. I just kind of wanted to provide.
It just makes me think. What's it called? What do you call it when, like, the primary thing that people seek is pleasure? What's that called?
Hedonism.
Hedonism. Yeah, it sounds like
Hedonism.
you're making. It sounds like you think that the Industrial Revolution is like synonymous with hedonism.
Oh, it's
like
the
any
complete
or that,
opposite,
like,
in my opinion. I find it to be the complete opposite. I find it
that's
to
not what you
be.
just described, or at least that's not what it sounded like.
I guess I should kind of restate. I mean, hedonism is definitely something I kind of associate with, because I think every day we should find something new to fulfill ourselves with, and find something new to do, rather than working our butts off for nothing. Because I mean, in the end, what does this matter? We all die. Like, who cares what job we have and how much money we make? We all die. Why not, like, make the most of our time on Earth every day, turn it into something different? Now I want to go back to the main question of why should one person's understanding of meaning be so the thing is everybody there nobody your personal understanding of the meaning of life it shouldn't be significant to other people because everybody should be searching to find their own personal meaning of life through what they've been through so far and what they've experienced, what they experience every day, and what they want their personal meaning of life to be. So we shouldn't at all.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think that if people are expressing what they find meaningful, you're inevitably going to encounter it, and you don't have a choice. You will find, like, it won't be meaningful to you in the same way it's meaningful to them, but you will find some meaning in what they find meaningful just through interacting with them. Like, it's unavoidable.
Well, I do agree with the fact that with 7 billion people on the planet, there's bound to be people who agree with each other on their own personal meanings of life. But I think everybody has something different. Like whether you agree on the idea of let's like a really kind of stock standard like meaning of life. Like why are we on this planet? Let's just say like
Well,
to listen to God or something like that. Like plenty of Christians or Jews or whatever or Muslims, everybody of every religion. A lot of people believe that the meaning of life is religion, something to do with religion. Yet everybody's experienced religion in their own different ways, and everybody has kind of talked to their gods and prayed to their gods in a different way. And I feel like everybody kind of has a different version of that.
I may not have articulated exactly what I meant properly. What I was more meaning was that because you will encounter so say for example you take that example you gave, religion. Like even if you don't agree with a particular person's religion, just through way of encountering religious people, you will develop some form of meaningful thoughts on what you think of religion, even if you disagree with them. Like the finding meaning in what you encounter is unavoidable, is what I was trying to illustrate.
Well, I think let me go back to the prompt of why should is no reason. It may possibly be inevitable that we are going as humans, if we find someone we love or we find someone that we care about, it is inevitable that things that are meaningful to them are going to become meaningful to us just because we care about them. But there is no reason why it should happen. It just does. That's kind of something that goes along with the idea of building relationships with people, romantic or non-romantic. If you don't like, even if you like it or not, that's going to happen. There's no there's no reason why it should or shouldn't. There's no reason why it should be meaningful. It just kind of does.
I think that there is actually positive reasons for why you should find things other people find meaningful. Why you should find them meaningful yourself is that it enables you to collaborate with them, and that like increases the things you're able to achieve. Like, but through collaboration, humanity has achieved like incredible things. And if we did not have a shared like intersubjective agreement on what we find meaningful, that never would have been possible.
I mean, I think you're kind of confusing the idea of shared goals with
Well,
the
shared
idea
goals, like shared meaning, is a requirement for shared goals.
I mean, my personal kind of meaning of life. Not that I've had it fully kind of written in stone yet, but I do believe. I mean, I don't really think it has anything to do with religion. I don't think it has anything to do with. I think mostly it's just self fulfillment and hedonism and living every day to the fullest. That to me is the meaning of life, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that believe in that. But when we're talking about great minds and great builders and people and all sorts of scientists, mathematicians, and people coming together to create things, whether it be scientific advancement or art or architecture. I mean, plenty of them might
It
have
can be
similar.
simplified even further. Like, sorry to cut you off, but like for example, when in the construction of a skyscraper, all of the workers, they might, even if they don't find the exact work that they're doing meaningful, they at the very least find getting paid meaningful, and that's a shared thing that all of the workers will agree to, that has meaning to them, and so it allows them to all work together in a team when they otherwise wouldn't.
Now let me think about the statement you just provided there about workers working on a skyscraper together. Well, I don't think, I mean, I think personally, it's quite a shallow reason. I mean, people might consider that to
It
be a
can be,
reason
but
of life, but that's
fundamentally,
shallow,
it's all
and that
driven by meaning.
really, I mean, I think most people can agree that that isn't really a sufficient enough meaning of life, and that you're not looking hard enough. If that's the only thing you can come up with, then really your personal life doesn't have a meaning if you only care about money.
I 100% agree with you. I don't think that is a good meaning for life. It was more illustrating that everything fundamentally is driven by meaning, and
I don't think that's a meaning
at least
all.
in the human world. Like obviously, natural events will happen regardless of human meaning, but for the things that humans accomplish, all of it is driven by meaning, and having a shared meaning allows you to much more easily collaborate.
I mean, I don't think that something like money even could count as a meaning. Personally, I don't really think. I think that's shallow, and I don't think that counts.
So when you work, getting paid means nothing to you.
No, I mean, obviously, you have to do it in this society to provide, but I don't think providing for a family is a personal meaning of life.
So getting
It's
paid means you're able to provide too. That's what it means? It means you're able
It's
to provide.
something you
Like it
have
holds
to
meaning.
do, but it's not something you should. It's not something you should make your life should not revolve around it. While you
I
should
But
agree.
now you swapped out the is claim for the ought claim. He didn't say anything about what ought be the meaning. He said that you can observably demonstrate that there is meaning in that.
I don't think that is a meaning though. Like personally, I don't
I
believe.
mean, what do you think the word meaning means? Because that falls under the definition of meaning.
The meaning of life is, I guess. Well, that's a conversation in its own. The meaning of life is what you choose it to be. But the thing is, certain things just can't be a meaning of life, regardless of whether you choose them or not.
But things can be meaningful without being the meaning
Okay,
for your
no,
like the meaning for your
we're
entire
gonna stop
existence.
there. We're gonna stop there. That
It is subjective.
wait. We're gonna stop there. That was an appeal to incredulity, which is a fallacy. So I'm going to treat that as a concession, Colombian.
Okay.
Lucky, you are up next.
Hi. I'm just gonna set up a system the way that Colombian did, and
Okay. Yep.
when we ask what is the meaning to life or what is meaning, I think that we mainly mean two possible things, or like at least primarily two possible. One is teleological purpose. So why were we created? What purpose was there in our creation? And I reject this because I don't think that there's a legitimate logical argument for there being a purpose in our existence. And then the other meaning, the other definition, the other way it's used is more of guidelines on how to be, like on our being, on our existence. So what is it that tells us, or is there a reason on why we should exist in a certain way? How do we exist? What meaning drives how we exist? And I think that while the first the meaning cannot be found in the first, there's no teleological purpose in our existence. But I do think that there is a meaning that you can find in guidelines. And I'd say that because the way that you find this is through morality. And I think that there is I don't want to say vague, but ambiguous. It doesn't set clear rules. Like it doesn't say don't eat beans or don't wear shoes inside. But it's since morality makes truth claims, it says this is true, that it ought to be this, or you shouldn't murder, and this, like, it's true that you should not murder. I think that any truth claim has a property of universality. It applies to everybody, and even that doesn't mean that everyone agrees, but it applies to everyone. And I think that a good guideline into achieving this, not necessarily perfect, is Kantian's categorical imperative. So if if what you believe applies to other, if you would be fine with other people doing it onto you, then you have a better understanding of whether or not it's universal, and therefore a better understanding of whether or not it's true. And similarly, I think that in morality there is a responsibility or obligation that would create meaning. So in order to be a good person, you have to act as a good person. So it's a duty for you to be categorically good. Then you must satisfy certain obligations in order to be categorically. So to be an apple, you have to satisfy certain obligations to be categorically an apple. That's my argument.
So where would you stand on, like, if people can have different understandings of meaning, why should you consider other people's meaning like valid, and why should they consider your meaning valid?
That is more of a pragmatic argument. I don't think it's necessarily relevant to the system that I set up, but it's when you consider other people's meaning, where you consider other reasons why they act certain ways, the guidelines that they set out, then you in essence get more experience, more arguments, and more knowledge. So any argument as to why they live a certain way should at least be entertained or respected, because when you have a collection of humans trying to find something out and trying to investigate trying to find the truth, generally the more people you get doing it, the more accurate you are. So as you collect more experiences and more understanding, then you get a better idea, and you get at least pragmatically a better idea of what the truth would be or would look like.
So would you say, like, just so I'm understanding correctly, would you say that the reason it's useful to take what other people find meaningful into consideration is because it can help you become better informed about what should be meaningful for you yourself?
Not necessarily to yourself, but
what might be considered meaningful by the general populace?
No, what would be meaningful in terms of morality? So like the way that
Okay.
Yeah, like how Kant sets up, if you would be fine with other people doing it onto you, it gives you a better understanding of whether or not it would be universal. It doesn't necessarily prove that it's universal, but it gives you a better understanding. And when you consider more experiences, it gives you a better understanding, even though it's not necessarily true.
So would you say what is moral is what is currently held by the intersubjective consensus?
I wouldn't make that claim. I wouldn't say it's definitely, but an intersubjective consensus is a good way of investigating.
It's a good measure. It's a metric.
Yeah. It's a good metric, but should be held with hesitation.
And so the metric can change over time, but what it's actually truly supposed to highlight is fundamental and unchanging?
Yes.
Because I'm not sure I agree that there's some fundamental unchanging moral good. I think that what is morally correct is what is best for, I guess it's more of like a pragmatic what is best for society thing. And because societies can vary greatly, I think that it depends on the society and the people within it.
Well, so morals are truth claims, right? You agree with that? It's a truth claim to say, yeah. And so when you understand this, you have to argue. So do you agree that truth is universal and unchanging? No, fundamental and unchanging. It's universal, fundamental, unchanging.
I agree that objective truth is like fundamental, unchanging, and subjective truths from within their like limited scope and framework, they should be unchanging, given the same scope and framework.
I'm confused on what you mean. Can you explain?
So like, objective truths cannot fundamentally change. Like they are by definition unchanging, and like the subjective understanding of truth, also for that point in time is unchanging, but people's understanding of truth can change over time. I guess what I was trying to highlight. So even though truth is unchanging, people's understanding of truth can change.
I wouldn't disagree, but since moral claims are truth claims, they have to adhere to the same properties that any other epistemic truth claim would make. So, like, if you point at an object and say this is an apple, that has to be universal, it has to be unchanging, it has to be fundamental. And so I would apply this also to ought claims. So if you say this action is bad, you ought not to do it, then that has to be universal, fundamental, and unchanging.
But I would say that a lot of the time truth claims exist within a limited scope, and so they're not exactly objective truth claims, because like by limiting the scope it becomes a subjective truth claim, and subjective truth claims are not necessarily matching the objective one. Like within the limited scope, it's a potential to be invalid exists. Like your
That's true.
understanding.
That's true. That is true for all truth claims.
I think that objective truth claims that do not have a limited scope, though.
What? Like what?
Unchanging. I don't know, like the claims that the universe exists. Because the scope is all encompassing, it cannot be changed. Like it's always true.
Look, I heard you contradict yourself, Chris.
Okay. It's quite
I
possible.
think that I think I'm gonna call that a concession. I wasn't paying close enough attention to like articulate exactly the words, but I did hear it.
I'm fine
next
with that.
up,
It's been a while.
yeah. Next
Holy
up,
fuck, I was sweating, dude. Oh fuck.
Alright, Tenant.
Oh, hello. Tenant is here.
Yeah.
So I actually I believe I heard the concession from Lucky, so I'm very surprised that Nano or Nani didn't notice it. At the very, 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 very beginning, you made the assertion that on the proposition to the negative, you said, "Is there any meaning to life?" You responded, "There is no objective meaning to life." And then much later on, you said that while there is an intersubjective meaning that people are striving for, it is relative to some objective meaning that might exist or that exists, basically. So would you like to pick one of those positions now?
I don't think I rejected any objective meaning. I said that there's not I didn't think that objective meaning is found as a sort of teleological purpose. I think that it can be found through objective or at least true morality. And I think that I was kind of confused on what you said, but so I'm not going to.
I can ask you a question then. I'll clarify.
Yeah.
So there's three things here that we should discuss, right? Is there any meaning to life? That's number one. Whether people's understanding of meaning, like different understandings of meaning, affects it, or like whether interpretations matter, and whether it's arbitrary. So I would like to truncate the stuff that we agree on. We agree that it's not arbitrary, right?
Yes.
By definition, I believe that's just a very weak catch there. And we can talk, and I believe we both agree on the idea of intersubjective pursuit of something.
What do you mean by that?
Well, should one person's understanding of meaning given like on that second part of the question? Okay, let's hold on to that and go to the first one actually, because I believe that's where we might disagree. Could you tell me whether you are whether you believe there is a meaning to life, or whether you believe that there is not?
I do believe that there's a meaning to life.
How do you know? I don't mean. I want to clarify. I don't mean like in a meta sense. not like a meta meaning. I mean the actual meaning.
So, like, are you asking how do I know specifically what our meaning is?
No, I didn't ask what. I asked whether is. I'm sticking to the proposition. Is there any meaning to life? You say yes. Provide evidence.
Because my argument is that yes, there is meaning to life, because when we define meaning as life as asserting guidelines on how to live, on how to exist, and I identify these guidelines as morality, and I think that there is a true morality that we can identify with properties of truth, which give us, and we can try to find this truth imperfectly using subjective consensus, not intersubjective consensus.
What I don't understand is while you explain to me the pursuit of something, you still don't provide any evidence as to whether it exists or not. You're saying that we can pursue something, right? But then you also make a positive claim about it. Now, um, let me give you an example. We can pursue things like, for example, I can pursue gold on the side of a hill, or like in like a mountain river, right? I can pursue gold in that region. That's going to be, and I can explain to you the methods, like in great detail, of how through consensus of various prospectors I'm going to pursue that gold. But until I find that gold, how am I going to make a positive claim whether it exists or not?
So are you asking me how do I know that there were guidelines on how to exist?
No. Yeah, well, you told me that there are in my analogy. You explained about the prospectors. There are prospectors. They use these prospecting methodologies. They talk to each other to try to find where the gold vein is. But the moment where they find the gold vein has not arrived yet. Do we agree on that? We don't have somebody who knows the meaning of life.
Yeah.
We have the pursuit of it, but and yet you made the claim that you know that it exists.
I'd argue that by definition it has to exist. So by definition, meaning is guidelines on how to exist. And by definition, these guidelines are morality.
I don't think you would be a good prospector if by definition gold has to exist. Yes, it has to exist, but not necessarily where you're looking. Or it might not exist whatsoever. Maybe you're very unlucky on the planet you chose.
Okay, can we abandon the analogy because it's tripping me
No.
up? Okay.
No, I don't think we should ban the analogy. I think it's very entertaining. We could have a vote on it. We could try to reach a consensus.
Okay, so
There's no universal law that prevents analogies, and that's the problem. I'm making a meta analogy of analogies now. I think maybe
Yeah.
too complicated. Let's go back to the gold mine again. Where is the gold? What is the meaning of life? Like what is the no sorry? What is the proof that it exists?
So again, my question to you is, are you asking me how do I know that these guidelines exist? Because I'm defining meaning of life as these guidelines.
Yes, you're doing a meta definition, and I agree to the meta definition, meaning that if okay, I'm going to state my position just so we're fair, but you can't take my position after I state it. Is that fine?
Okay.
Because if you take my position after I state it, it
Then I'd
means
be
a concession.
conceding. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, fine. I am agnostic as to whether there's a meaning of life or not.
Okay.
I apply the same very principles of pursuit that you described, except I maintain myself to be completely agnostic. I don't know whether there is meaning to life or not. But I do agree with you that we should have the meta meaning of the pursuit for that meaning. That's fine. That's everything good. And we can build a lot. We can build an entire civilization over it. I agree. But we don't know whether there will be a result. I mean, I don't have to provide the truth because I merely say I don't know. You're the one that has to provide the proof beyond the meta that it actually exists, because you made
Okay.
the careless assertion that it exists.
You cut out for me.
Well, I'm trying to hear for I'm fishing for a response, right? So
Oh, yeah.
again, I just outlined my position. I am agnostic, meaning I don't know whether there's meaning to life or not. I agree that we should look for it, and I believe that this is a meta meaning. It's something that we create intersubjectively. Fine, and there might be a meaning at the end of it, just like there might be gold down, the mountain, or there might not be. It might be the wrong mountain. Maybe in this universe there is a meaning. Maybe in this universe there isn't a meaning. I don't know. I'm willing to join you on the search to find out. But you make a significantly different assertion. You made the assertion that it exists. You said I asked you specifically. You said that it exists, and yet you can't provide proof for it.
Is there a question, does it exist, or where does it exist? Because you made the proposition, well, you made the rhetorical proposition that it might not exist where I identify it, where I say it would exist, so it might not exist where I locate it, which is a different question, I think, than does it exist at all?
Well, it's whether I mean, I believe the basic implication is that it's within our universe, but it might not exist in any universes. I mean, it's that's I guess to me that's a kind of a dodge. Is there a meaning? Is there any meaning to life? I'm agnostic, and you're positive. Positive claims need to be defended with evidence. Otherwise, they can be dismissed.
Okay, so I didn't catch an answer. Is the question, is there a meaning of life within our universe?
No. I believe that the very okay. These are my explanations, but the very basic question is very simple: is there any meaning to life? I responded as an agnostic. I said I don't
I
know.
think
You said
just
positive.
quickly,
Positive claims need to be defended. Please defend your positive claim. I'm waiting.
just quickly to interject. I think I might be wrong, and Lucky can correct me if I am. I think what he said, and I think the distinction he's trying to make now, is that he thinks that the statement is true in principle, but he doesn't have any evidence that it's true in practice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Lucky's claim. He thinks that it's uh, that it's true in principle but not in practice.
Not necessarily in practice.
No, not that it's not true in practice. That he doesn't have any positive evidence for it being true in practice.
Yes, but why would he? Oh, okay, so again, what I heard is methods. I haven't heard even a definition of why it's necessary by principle for it to exist. I mean, there might be good arguments. I just didn't hear them. I heard.
So I'm tracking it from his argument with Nano. From what I understood, he drew an analogy between truths of science and truths in other domains, and said that if there is such a thing as things that are true, right, and truth claims in science corresponding to the world, then other truth claims, such as moral claims, also have truth to them, even if we don't know what they are. Is that right, Lucky?
Yeah.
I reject that comparison entirely. I believe that there is a realm of questions to which science definitely produces high confidence answers. Okay? High confidence answers are still hypotheticals. Everything that we know about science is um, limited by the extent of our compression or knowledge of the entire universe. And so so-called scientific laws that we know are not like objective. They are uh, they they are the best theories, the fundamental theories that we have the most confidence in. If we find an anomaly, tomorrow, most of our science might collapse. There's we don't think that it's a likely idea that the universe has anomalies, but we haven't discovered the entire universe to find out. But still, science is good. We can agree that science is good for these high confidence, questions. And there are some questions that are almost high confidence, like we're approaching gravity and we're approaching, some quantum physics stuff. But there are some questions that might be forever beyond science. Like there are some pathing questions that have, or like questions like the weather might, you might not be able to predict weather systems because if chaos theory is correct, the calculations are impossible to complete within the existence of this universe. There are things that go beyond our ability to verify scientifically, and I believe that that if there is meaning to life, it's not likely to be within the realm of scientific facts. So I don't know how you can, like, what is how you can make such a certainty when when we have a field of heuristics, we have a field of morals, we have a field of aesthetics. All of those fields are rather soft. They're heuristical. They're not scientific by their nature.
I
And you,
think when
sorry, go ahead.
I think when Insync was explaining my position, when he said scientific, it wasn't so much as like scientific theories, observations, and the process, but more of a scientific language where where it attempts to be as concise and as precise as possible. And so not like scientific theories and a scientific method, but more of a proposition, and then is this proposition true? So if you say this object is an apple, is that proposition true? Or even I identify this object as an apple, is that proposition true? And I would argue that moral claims have the same truth value as these epistemic claims. So I'd argue that moral claims are also truth claims. So it is a truth claim to say it is true that murder is bad, or it is true that I ought to act this way. And as such, they have certain properties that that epistemic claims with scientific language also have. It must be fundamental, it must be universal, and it must be unchanging.
Yeah, you made, this is another positive claim that you made, that the meaning of life has to be, even if I give you that the meaning of life has relation, I believe it's more like a consequential relation with morality. Like if there is a meaning to life, then universality and morality makes sense because you pursue the meaning. I understand this pathway. But I believe that your assertion that morality behaves this way or the meaning of life behaves this way as scientific language is an assertion without basis. Because it could also be that that morality and the meaning of life behave like a heuristic, where it cannot be expressed as like as a logical statement, and I don't see the necessity of it being expressed as such. um, Even moral claims like murder is wrong, they are stated logically, but they're expressed almost entirely heuristically in our society, exception upon exception upon exception. The actual act of ending a life, right, is not called murder, but that's the objective thing. The life is over. That's when someone dies, right? That's murder. Or that's a killing. And there's a whole heuristic of whether it's a murder or it's a killing. So the morality is a heuristical question, even though you try to misrepresent it as like a binary.
Alright, so like just quickly, I heard you say, Tenet, that the argument he's making is based on a proposition that the meaning of life is like inherently a logical truth rather than being based on heuristics. And I actually don't think, from my understanding of what I've heard Lucky say in this argument so far, I don't think he is basing his argument on a proposition about the meaning of life. I think the argument seems to be predicated on a notion of truth as an objective thing rather than the meaning of life.
again, you're mounting a solid defense for him, but that's not how he starts. How it started. I gave a very simple contrast. I said that, and I told him that he needs to correct his position. I gave him a warning, and then I stated what the position that I consider more, I guess, reliable, and at the position of being agnostic. Agnostic to the meaning of life allows the person to have the same level of pursuit as him, because it's an unknown. The unknown is something that that you could choose to want to discover, and you might even make an assertion beyond that, but it's irrelevant. It's all of the justifications that he provided are methods, and then when I pointed the fact that these are just methods, they're not like an actual justification. Like he did explain kind of heuristic methods, which is like something intersubjective, right? It's basically a heuristic between different people's meanings over time, whatever becomes more popular, and so on and so forth. Whatever survives, it's a heuristic pursuit function. Fine, but that's not what he claimed. At the core of his claim, there is a truth claim that doesn't need to be there. And then he said, well, it has to be there categorically, right? He said, I don't know, but it has to be there categorically. I asked for categorical proof then, if there's no objective proof, like actual proof of its existence, if he can't say it, then he needs to provide why it's categorically true. And what he did is he used the tautology by claiming that the meaning of life has to be expressed as a logical structure, as a logical sentence, just like morals. And he made the analogy to morals. If we accept morals are analogous, we don't still have to accept that his interpretation is the right one. Like, what is the evidence that that meaning has to be expressed as a logical function?
Look, I understand your contention. I'm not going to continue to speak for him, but I don't get the impression that he's articulating himself sufficiently to be understood by you. That's the last thing I'll say.
I just explained the entire sequence of our conversation from both
positions.
I
understand.
So if you claim that I misunderstand something, you or him actually have to be very specific about what I misunderstood.
Of course, I was just pointing out I do have that perception, but it's his argument, so I'm going to let him try to explain it.
I'm here. I'm just trying to collect my thoughts.
I'll help you by writing them down, my thoughts at least.
Okay.
In the intermission, does anybody else want to add their name onto the end of the queue? Because at the moment, these are our last speakers.
So I'm just curious about exactly how you're defining God, because generally, like, there's some connotation of creation attached when people refer to God, and so I'm wondering how you distinguish that sort of God from nature itself.
I'm defining God as reality. Reality, the predicate reality is the most general possible predicate that can apply to anything possible at all that we can see or think about.
Okay,
Right?
so your position is that mind
angles on this
Exactly.
actually represent positions, right?
You said math required language, dude.
Math is a language. It doesn't even require language. It is a language.
Yes, math is a technical language, of course.
Right. That's what I said right at the start. I'm really sure what you're getting at.
No, that's
but if
not
you're talking
what
about physics, right? If you're talking about physics.
What I said was that physics is applied math.
No. Physics is more than applied math.
It doesn't matter if it's more than that.
it's
It's
still
still
actually your fault, man.
It's always my fault, Stacy.
It is, because like every time when you say like we should own tanks and fighter jets, and then I show like what that logically leads to, and then like you accept that that's a meme and you laugh about it and you joke, and then we just go back to the same thing. It's just a circle. And that's always what happens. Because then you laugh